Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to Talking Dogs on a Monday night. We're here once again in the absence of Ian Fortune, but don't worry, he will be back next weekend. I've got two great guests joining me this evening. Tommy Lyons, of course. Tommy, good evening. You're very welcome.
Thanks, Barry. Yeah, we had a great weekend. The weekend, and as I said, I think I said in the paper this morning, it was deeply satisfying. The final. No, I don't mean the result itself. That doesn't matter. Although I am a big fan of good Cody, so I want there was something nice about the result too. But just a conclusion to the whole competition. The quality of the dogs. We worried about the draw. It turned out to be a fabulous final that at halfway could have gone three ways. By the last bend, it could have gone three. You added in Ballymacwhispa into the equation. So it was a fabulous race, start to finish. A great conclusion to a great stake. Thank God.
I thought you were going to say we had a fabulous week. I thought you were going to say without Ian Fortune, but obviously you went off in a different direction. Jimmy, you were down there in Cork. What was the atmosphere like before we get into the race in itself? It seemed to be brilliant from watching from afar.
Yeah, Barry, I've never seen anything like it in Cork. It went back almost to the great days in the Western Road when the Laurels was at its peak in the 70s and 80s. I've never seen anything like it in Curraheen Park. Crowd was fantastic. The atmosphere was incredible. And the standard of racing was just beyond belief. And it was, really... it was a combination of all our dreams to have the Laurels final night, such a special occasion, and the supporting card was absolutely incredible. I never saw anything like it.
No, the supporting card was unbelievable. I was on duty at Shelbourne Park. I didn't get to see some of the races, but I was only looking back through the results. It was quality from start to finish. Jimmy, we will start with you on the final itself. Good Cody ran out a deserving winner. How did you see the race unfold yourself?
Well, I suppose it went in many ways like a lot of people predicted, that Serene Ace would lead, and he has been incredible. His early pace has been unbelievable. And I suppose from Michael O'Donovan's point of view, he's probably hoping there might be a small bit of trouble behind and he would last home on this occasion. But it was a very, very clean race. Good Cody tracked around beautifully in second. And then I think in fairness to Swords Rex and Galloping Sydney, they came together a bit at the first bend, which probably didn't help either of them. And it evolved. The race evolved the way we thought it might. Then with Serene Ace hitting the front and going to the last bend in front, and good Cody tracking him beautifully. And in fairness, as Tommy said there, he was a fantastic winner, a well-deserved winner. He's been at the top level for the last year and a half, competing in all the big races. Won the Kingdom Derby, I think, and he won in Dundalk. And he's been a fantastic dog, and it was a well-deserved victory. And no one could deny him that on the night.
Yeah, it was indeed. Tommy, as Jimmy just touched on there, he did win the Bar One in Dundalk. He won the Kingdom Derby. He was a finalist in the Produce Stakes. He started his career off in the Juvenile Classic. You can mention all the stuff this dog's done, but he's been there, he's done it, and he's still running at the top of his game.
Yeah, the funny thing with him is, if you're looking for a Laurels winner, you probably look to the sprint stakes like that, especially 400, where they have that brilliant early pace, and they'll get the extra yards that you need for Curraheen Park. But you know what happened with good Cody over the last few months? We talked about it in the past, Barry. I think you mentioned it before as well, saying that he'd almost changed the style of racing. He wasn't an out-and-out kind of break, get in front and kind of try burn them off. He was kind of missing the kick, showing pace and staying on a lot better than he had been. Kind of half kicking myself. The way I played it from a punting point of view was I laid the top and laid the bottom, which I don't really like laying, to be honest about it. It's a very negative way to look at any race. But I laid the top and bottom because of the draw for both of them. But when you look back at the race, good Cody actually had a great draw. I just didn't think he'd lead, and I wondered would he be able to get by the one in front and not have something come from behind to pick him up. And it did work that way. Serene Ace, as we all anticipated, led the race. He kind of knew out of the second bend that he was in trouble. He was only 2 lengths in front, and it just wasn't enough. And there were dogs in behind him, like stronger dogs in behind him. He knew he was kind of in trouble. But good Cody, I think where the race was decided was down between the third and fourth bends. Swords Rex went inside, and that's something we talked about last week. People were saying that he can win from 6 because he's so good, but I felt from last week in the semi-finals that where he made his ground was along the inside. He didn't want to go around the outside of dogs. It's not natural for him. And I think even at the first bend, he almost went to go inside Galloping Sydney. Now, I know Galloping Sydney was getting a bump and being pushed wide a little bit, but he was more inclined to go inside even than Galloping Sydney was, in my opinion. But down the third bend, he switched inside, and good Cody went around the outside. And I would say, as they straightened up, just for 2 strides as they straightened up, there were 3 of them right across the track together, and they could have gone any one way. And if you stopped it there, what would you have said, Barry? Who would win it? If you just stopped at the top of the straight, who would you say is going to win this?
Without a doubt, I would have said Swords Rex, because when you think of the other two, Good Cody is Sprinter of the Year, last year's Sprinter of the Year. We have him pigeonholed as a sprinter, and Serene Ace, we all know he's a sprinter. But Jimmy, as Tommy asked me the question, if you had a paused it off the last bend, I would have had a lot of money on Swords Rex to win it coming off the last bend.
Yeah, Barry, I backed him and I thought he had a great chance coming off the last bend. And to be honest, I never saw Ballymacwhisper until they flashed past the line. It was incredible what she did. I've never seen anything like it. And even, I think Tim Keller, the commentator, didn't even notice her coming up. She's an incredible burst of pace from the last bend. Actually, I've never seen anything like it in the Laurels final. Another stride and she'd have been up to win the race. And as you said, at the last bend, we weren't even mentioning her. And yet she gets up to be second beaten, what, a half length or something? So it's extraordinary, actually. And I just thought, I think Tommy summed up there, Barry, actually, in that Swords Rex went to go inside a lot more than I thought he would, to be honest. I thought he might stay a bit wider and track around the second bend, but he didn't. He went to go inside the first bend, made trouble, and the same at the third and last bend, I think.
Yeah, I think that's where he lost his race. I think he maybe just waited a second off the last bend just for that gap to get up the inside, whereas if he had a power on around the outside, he might have just got there. But look, I think he had every chance in the end. Let's just go through the runners, Tommy, of the final and see how they fared off. Ballymacwhisper there, as Jimmy mentioned, she came with a huge finish. And look, I'd say hopefully the Ledger could be the next step for her, and the extra 25 yards could help her.
Yeah, she'd be a natural for it, you would hope. I think with the exception maybe of Droopy's Edison, who actually didn't run as bad as his placing suggests, but they all ran the race to some degree. Ballymacwhisper, we all knew she'd have a tougher task in the semi-final because she'd have to come past more dogs. Like at halfway, as Jimmy said, we're thinking she's not even going to be involved. We're looking at it thinking this can go any one of three ways. And all of a sudden, three became, it was three again because Serene Ace had gone back a little bit, and then Ballymacwhisper was making progress. So what she did home is phenomenal. Like, you just always know you can never say she's beaten by the draw. She's beaten by a lack of early pace. But what phenomenal pace she has to get herself into it, because you could argue all day that Swords Rex is beaten by the draw. But she's not, because she's always going to find herself in that position where he has to do something different. Like Good Cody obviously ran his race. Serene Ace, I mean, you get it out to a final of a Laurels and it's a specialist early pacer. You have to get it out in front again. And he did. He had his race. He had his chance. Did 28:37 on the clock. And that was never going to be good enough. But you can always take maybe a length off that for the fact that he was passed. And when they're being passed, they're kind of be slightly checking back and whatever else. Droopy's Edison missed the kick slightly. Went to go inside, was actually showing pace up into the bend and went to go inside and actually hit the rails, I think. It certainly rubbed the rails at the first bend and ran on strongly close home. Yeah, I think he ran okay. And Gallop in Sydney, like, we knew exactly what he was. I found it hard to see how he could win from the draw because he couldn't clear the inside dogs. He was in the position that he needed to be. Well, in the best position he could be, let's just say, at the first bend, and it just wasn't good enough on the night. Still was going to run his race. I don't think there's any excuse in terms of, you can argue Swords Rex was beaten by the draw, but he actually ran a fabulous race in defeat. It just turned out to be a really, really good and not quite fully clean final, but pretty close to it. It
just goes to show you the strength and depth of the final, Jimmy. When you look at Droopy's Edison, who broke the track record in round 2, and he went off at 7-1 to go and win it. But just touching on just going through the runners, Jimmy, Serene Ace, that's now his 38th run, never been out of the Force 4. He's been such a dog for Michael O'Donovan.
He's a brilliant dog, and Michael is a fantastic trainer, as we know. And Michael always seems to have dogs that have an awful lot of early pace. It's whatever he does, he's a genius that is at the game, obviously. But as Tommy said there, the dog, I thought he might do 28:20 on the night, and if he led and did that, he'd probably win the race. But he's just finding it hard at the really highest level to get home when it's an open, clean race. And the caliber of the race, I thought I actually backed Swords Rex because I thought he might defy the draw. But when you look back on it, as Tommy said there, it's very hard to defy the draw when the class is so good in the race. You might get away with it, like he did. He went out of trap 5 in an earlier round, and defied the draw, I suppose, in a way. But as the caliber of race is so high then on Saturday night, it's very difficult to do that. And I think the best dog really came out on the night and won it, and nobody could argue with that.
No, you certainly can't. Tommy, you touched on Droopy's Edison, then Galloping Sydney. He's a dog that I give a bit of a chance to in the final. In fairness to him, he went up well, and he was just met the bend at the wrong time, really.
Yeah, that was the problem with that. we kind of you could predict it to some degree that was going to happen. He had shown himself to be an intelligent dog, a clever dog. He didn't dive over left. Yes, he was tightening up at the first bend, but they were all coming together. He was unfortunate there was so many of them inside him, and then Swords Rex, was on his tail, and because he also wanted to go inside, he was looking for a bit of a gap, and as soon as the gap came, Swords Rex went through it, and that ended Galloping City's chance of being involved even down the back. I mean, his race was over at the first bend, but he had been in superb form. He won a quarterfinal heat, he won the semi-final heat, showed terrific ability. It's just that the quality, as Jimmy said, was just so high. I mean, there were Laurels finals in recent times. You would have said Galloping City had a great chance from top 5. And there were Laurels finals recently. You would have said that Swords Rex was a certainty despite being in trap 6. But this was so deep. It was so deep from the top to bottom. You just couldn't get away with anything.
Yeah, I'm just well said. Yeah, I'm just finishing up on this race. Jimmy, Swords Rex again, fancied by myself. I had a few quid in him as well. I thought he came away okay, but look, he owes nobody nothing at this stage of his career. He's won the Kirby. He won on Derby Final Night in Shelbourne Park, clocking a fabulous 27.76 run, I think it was. Not too many have gone faster, but he could be one to go to the Ledger starting next week in Limerick.
He's a fabulous dog, Barry, as you said. He's been again at the highest level, and it's just the caliber of the race was so high, as we're all saying. It's very, very difficult. You've got to do everything right, and to be fair, Good Cody did everything right. Actually, when the traps opened for the first 50 yards, I was very happy with where Swords Rex was.
Yeah.
I thought he would actually get around the bend, but as a contradicting myself slightly, but the caliber of pace of the dog side, as Tommy said, was so high that the one dog who did use the draw and ran his race to perfection was Good Cody. And on that basis, you can't deny that he was a worthy winner. And also, Paddy McWhisper, I suppose, as Tommy said, she's always going to be behind. But I mean, I didn't see anything coming like that since Sonic Flight won the Laurels from behind so far. But he managed to win it, but she's a fabulous bitch. And I think they're going to have some fun with her going forward at the highest level.
Just speaking about going forward, Jimmy, I'll stick with you for a second. The Ledger starts in Limerick this Saturday night. There's no rest, straight down to Limerick on Saturday night over 5:50. With the exception of Serene Ace, I'd be pretty confident saying the other 5 could line up down there.
Yeah, I'm not sure about what the owners think. I don't think Good Cody probably will have to win the Laurels. I'm sure they probably won't. They probably might give him a break. I don't know. But racing isn't affecting him at all, and it's better that he's getting. And as you said, Serene Ace wouldn't be a Ledger dog, I don't think. I think everybody else, all the other dogs would be ideally suited by Ledger distance. And in particular, Barry Mac was tailor-made for Limerick, I would have thought.
Yeah, Tommy, can you see the other 4 going to the Ledger? I don't think, I agree with Jimmy. I don't think Good Cody will go. I think he deserves a well-earned break. But the other 4 could go to the Ledger.
I could definitely see them. I could definitely see them going again. Obviously, it's to be another step up and trip for Galloping Sydney, and it might be the fact that he has such good early pace, and you won't always get such a tricky draw. I could definitely see the others lining up. Be interesting to see how Droopy's Edison gets on down there. I think he had been coming to such a point. It'll be interesting to see if he can get back to that point again. You know what I mean? What I mean is to the very top of his game, the very, very top of it, which is pretty close to Swords Rex in terms of the fastest in the entire country. Good Cody, just on a final point, because we haven't really mentioned Pat Guilfoyle. Pat doesn't keep a very, very big kennel, but he keeps quality, and the dogs respond to his training. They seem to have a brilliant consistency about them. You know, there'll be times you see him having non-runners or whatever. It's just that he's minding the dogs so much, and he's only running them when they're at the very peak of the game, when he knows that they can represent themselves well, and that's why they all seem to have such a good record. He is just a case in point for the way Pat trains and for the type of dog and the type of results he gets from greyhounds. Good Cody is just like I think I said last week when we were doing the road show, that he's the type of dog, if you don't like Good Cody, you don't really like greyhound racing, because he's just a real honest quality dog who puts it in every single night. So I wouldn't have begrudged any of the 6 winning the final, but it was a good result.
Yeah, it was. And just touching on Pat Guilfoyle, I don't know Pat that well. I've had a handful of conversations with him at Shelbourne Park during the Derby, but he's a great ambassador for a sport. He comes across very well, and he's very generous with his time. So listen, well done to the Kennedy family and to Pat Guilfoyle, and of course to Good Cody on winning the Laurels this year. Lads, it was the highlight, I suppose, but the card down at Curraheen Park on Saturday night was absolutely fantastic. Jimmy, start off with you with the first race, the Curraheen Park Bookmakers 550 final. Adrala Adam, that was a good performance. He broke fast and made all to win in 29.61.
It did a great win for the lads. It's a stake, Barry, that we decided when we launched this Laurels program that we would have a a final and Laurels final night for dogs of A4, A5 standard, to give those owners and those dogs a chance to feature on the main card. And it's
Very
worked
important.
out brilliantly. And in fairness, Tony Winters on our committee, it was Tony's idea, and he thought it was a great idea. And I think it's worked out fantastic to give the small owner, and they're not bad dogs, they're just a slightly lower level that would normally be featured on Derby final night or Laurels final night. And it was a great race to open the card with, and he was a very, very worthy winner. And again, a great prize for an A4 dog to win €2,000 on the night, and it gives him great exposure to the big occasion.
It is. Myself and Tommy touched on this last week. We were talking about the card in Shelbourne Park last week that was won, and most of the races were won within their grade. So it's very important to give the local lads a chance to win on a big grade. So well done to you and the gang of friends and supporters of Cork Racing for putting that up. Tommy, the second race, Skylight Blake, he wins for the 33rd time for the Skylight Syndicate and Nicholas Walsh. Beating Flashing Willow was a little unlucky in second, missing the break. But Skylight Blake, you can't take anything away from 33 wins this day and age. It's some going.
And the beauty of this is the all track supporters who sponsored this race, and the owners and connections. Nicholas and Paddy Welch are major players in the all track supporters club. The dog, we don't have sprints in Yaw. We haven't had them for years. So he has been running over 5.25, winning races too with his early pace. But he's a real adaptable, versatile type of dog. As well as the fact that he won, Paddy and the lads brought up a bus load of people, and that's what it's about. They do their best to get people into Yaw. They do their best to get people into Curraheen Park. They brought a big crowd with them the other night. I think they all kind of pulled a few quid together and had it on Skylight Blake. So I hope they went home happy anyway.
Very good, 7-2. Yeah, the favourite here in this race, Jimmy, was Flashing Willow. Look, he's probably one of the fastest sprinters in the country when he does things right, but he can't afford to miss a break in sprints such as this.
That's why a lot of us don't like betting on sprints. We still do, because you've got to be foot perfect. And he actually ran an incredible race to finish where he did, beating, I think, a neck and a head or something, and he was left
short head, yeah,
and he's left flat footed completely at traps, which he does an odd time, but he's a brilliant sprinter. And I'm sure looking forward with him again. They'll have a lot of fun with him.
Yeah, hopefully the weather stays half decent, and we might see him then for the Night of Stars up in Shelbourne Park. The third race, Tommy, we've seen a track record here by a bitch, I'll Not Be Back. She was very good in Shelbourne Park last week when she beat Kilgraney Sydney and Karen Toogle. The two of those dogs are some of the best around, and they had every chance to run her down. She ran further away from them. But it shows you the quality in this race when Scooby Duchess, an out runner up, leads all, and she's passed easily and beaten by 5 lengths by I'll Not Be Back. It was a serious performance.
This is almost quite funny, because I fancy Crossfield Linda, right? I thought she had a draw and she might have the early pace. Now she maybe she just needed the run. I don't know, but I thought that she might lead I'll Not Be Back, and get first run would be key because the track was in good condition. We knew that 29.61 in the A4, 5.50 in the first race. So we knew it was on fire. I thought Crossfield Linda would get first run along the inside of I'll Not Be Back. Well, Scooby Doo just flew out.
Yeah.
Did absolutely everything right. Posted 28.16 and was beaten out of sight. Which is ridiculous. The pace I'll Not Be Back showed was it was incredible. It's a track record, but you know what? When you do a track record come from behind, I think you can take a little bit more off it as well.
Yes.
It's a sub 27.80 run without any question. Now, I did say recently, we were talking about it for a few months with Ian on this show that I think that breaking 28 seconds will be commonplace, pretty soon, and it's looking that way. It started to happen almost everywhere at this stage. But this is a phenomenal display, and the unfortunate thing is, it brings me back to the quarterfinals of the Laurels when I thought she was in what looked in modest enough sort of a heat. And I thought there's an opportunity for her now to pop up, turn close and power past them, a bit like she did the other night. And it just didn't happen for her. And I did talk to Paul Hennessy afterwards, and I didn't grasp it at the time, but he was extremely disappointed. He got a qualifier through in that heat actually into semi-finals, but he was very disappointed with her. And obviously knew what she was capable of doing. She went and did 28.07 in Shelbourne Park previous week, and then to come down and do 27.81. And I actually said to somebody after the first round of the Laurels, I think she actually beat Good Cody. I think, did she in the first round? She beat or Drewby's Edison. Sorry, Drewby's Edison. Yeah. But anyway, I said to somebody that she showed pace up. She got a little bit lost to halfway and then flew home. And they were kind of looking at me confused to say, you mean the middle part of the race is her weakest? And it kind of is to some degree, because Scooby Duchess led her easily and held her for a while, but then she just took off. And I don't know what she posted home, but it must have been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, Jimmy, I was going to have a few quid on Scooby Duchess and watching from Shelbourne Park. And when she came out like she did, I was kicking myself. I was going, oh, this thing is going to win, you know. And Oak's runner up, she poaches a 3 or 4 length lead, and as Tommy says, she ends up getting beat 5. I say that's one of the best runs you've seen down in Cork.
Absolutely. Just to reflect on it, apart from the Laurels final, this was the highlight of the night. It was an extraordinary run, really. And she's one of the few dogs or bitches that have won out of Trap 6 in Cork and did a fabulous run. When she did it a few weeks ago before the Laurels, she had reached 28-10 or something. And Paul Hennessy was telling me the same night he taught an awful lot of her. And as Tommy was saying there, I think he expected her to go a long way in the Laurels. And as we saw, no wonder he did, because that was an extraordinary run. As you said there, Barry, heading down the back straight, I thought we had a chance of winning, because I backed, I'll not be back. But then Scrooby Duchess pulled away again. But just by the third bend, this bitch just took off. I've rarely seen anything like it in Cork. And it was an extraordinary run home to get to the clock she did and break a track record. She's obviously of the highest caliber. And she has won in Shelbourne Park, and she's won in Cork out of Trap 6, which is very difficult to do. And now she's a track record run. So fabulous pitch. And as I said, the highlight of the night on was for me, apart from good Cody. It was a sensational run, and one that will be remembered for a long time.
Yeah, and she's a couple of options open to her now. Obviously, the Ledger next week, and I think there's the Galway Oak start quite shortly down in Galway. So exciting times ahead for her. The Jerry and Michael Hennerty Memorial unraced stake. Tommy Ballycown Liam, a good winner there. He just got up to beat Brightview Sydney on the run for home.
My life on this couldn't possibly win from the draw. I had a fair idea that it might be the fastest dog in the race, but the draw was terrible. And actually, if you see it coming down to third end, it's glued up to the rails, and actually won because of that. There was a little bit of bumping in front and the likes of that, and it kind of opened up for him. But I think he's a fast dog, and we'll see even better from him when he gets an inside draw again. I think this race might have been the making of him too. Yeah,
it could be. Yeah, look, gets his head in front. Jimmy, look, we always see decent dogs coming out. The Toolmaker Stan, you wouldn't give up on him just yet. He went off your favourite. And even the bitch that finished at the back of the field, Mother Jones, she went off a big price. So I think she could have a future over 6 pence. It's a stake that usually throws up a decent one or two.
It always does, yeah. And it was a very competitive find again. I didn't think he could win from Trap 6 either. And his friends of mine know on the bitch that was in Trap 5, Droopy's Unicorn. And she has shown blinding early again, but just a bit out too far on the night. And you know, all these dogs I think will feature over the next few months and will win plenty of races.
Yeah, good stuff indeed. The next race for me looked one of the best races on paper. Obviously, apart from the final, was the 750. It was the 5-dog race in the end. But we had the big three we seen take each other on in Shelbourne Park a couple of weeks ago. Pablo Escobar for Carol Ramsbottom. We had Magical Poppy for Pat Guilfoyle and Paul Hennessy, as well as Jack Tavern Bella for Graham Holland and Sunshine Train for Brendan Monsell. Tommy, I had Hello Hammond in my head pigeon as an out-and-out 750 staying dog. But it was only when I was looking back at a couple of notes yesterday evening. He didn't actually have his first 750 until September this year. And he's now won 5 out of 6. And the one he was beaten in, he ran a blinder behind Pablo Escobar at Shelbourne Park and Derby final. So, like, he's really excelled over the trip. He was no slouch over 4 bends either, obviously making the final of an English Derby, but he's really taken his game to another level over 6 bends.
Yeah, you know what? When I thought, it's actually the markets were very funny here on Saturday night with this race in particular. Would you believe at one stage on the machine there were 3.65, all three of them? Hello Hammond, Pablo Escobar, and Magical Poppy. They were all the same price, co-favorites at one point on the machine at during the night. And Hello Hammond, I thought was going to be an even money, maybe slightly odds on. So I was trying to find a way to get him beaten. And I thought, you know what, Magical Poppy can lead him. And if she does, she might be a different bitch when she gets on the bunny again. She did exactly what she needed to do. She forced him to swing very wide off the second bend, concede plenty of ground, yes, and yet he won in a canter. It was deeply impressive. He's just a class greyhound. You know, I never regret when you're trying to get one beaten at a short price, because if you're going to be backing short prices all the time, there's only one way you're going, that's straight to the poorhouse. So you're trying to find a way. I thought I had found it. I thought at the second bend, geez, you're a clever lad, Tom. You're after doing the right thing. And next thing, Hello Hammond just took off again and won deeply impressively. Now, Pablo Escobar ran fine. I thought it was a tricky draw from Jack Tavern Bella. Ran a cracking race, actually.
Good to see her back. She took a nasty fall in the final or semi-final of the 600 in Shelbourne Park. So it's great to see her coming back to something like that. She can
develop into a proper 6 bend, which are real. You know, there's plenty more to come from her. So Magical Poppy, just not the same bitch she was earlier in the year. Whether she can come back to her or not, who knows? But she has terrific ability. She just everything went for her, and she kind of faded out of contention later on. It's just a little bit disappointing, but maybe in time will get her back to her best.
I was trying to be a genius like you on Saturday night, and I backed Pablo Escobar and Magical Poppy, but it didn't go well. Off the second bend, Jimmy, it looked as though, as Tommy mentioned, Hello Hammond, he was thrown very wide. If supporters of Magical Poppy, I was one of them. I thought she was going to kick on clear and be hard to pick up. But in fairness to Hello Hammond, that was a huge run.
It was in Shelbourne Park the previous night when they met. He bombed out and made all, didn't he? So
that's right.
She got the run on him Saturday night, and he still managed to beat her. But as Tommy said, she just seems to slightly gone off the ball at the minute. Bitches can do that, and so all dogs can do it. But I would say that she'll bounce back to some form again at some stage and win a lot of races. But it was a great run by Hello Hammond, and he won going away and was never in doubt. He swung very wide again, but got away with it. Didn't seem to matter. He had a lot in hand, in fairness, and he's been a great money spinner for Paul Hennessy as well now, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's some dog to get to an English Derby final and winning a nice like tonight. As I say, he ran a blinder Derby final in Shelbourne Park, and that remains the only time he's been beaten over 6 bends. So he's 5 out of 6. Pablo Escobar ran a blinder back in second place, and as Tommy mentioned, Jack Tavern Bella. Yeah, she should have a future over further. The next race, the one time only Open 575. I thought Magical Mary here, although she didn't win, she put in a huge run to try and run down Bacchus Crystal, who we'd seen win over 600 at Shelbourne Park. But Jimmy, all credit to Bacchus Crystal, 31.82 for 30.82 for the 575. That was some run, and it was a good field.
Some run, a great race. And I thought when she hit the front Bacchus Crystal that nothing would get near her. But it took the bitch a long time to get into her stride. But coming to the line, it was so close you couldn't call it almost. But I didn't think anything would get near Bacchus Crystal after she had hit the front like she did. So it just shows how good Magical Mary is. That it was a great run, and top class race, and as you said, fantastic clock as well. And she's been a brilliant bitch for Graham Holland as well, hasn't she, since leading up to the Derby night, and ran well in Cork. Cork seems to suit her as well. She's run very well there in the past as well.
Yeah, a recent winner of the 600 in Shelbourne Park, Tommy, as Jimmy said, when she bombed it like that, it shows you how my night went. I had a few quid of Magical Mary as well. It was an expensive night. But when she it's only going to get worse as well. So when she led by, I think she must have led by 3 or 4 lengths down the back straight. I was sort of hardly looking at the screen anymore. But for Magical Mary to be beating a short head, she put in some running.
She ran a cracking race. You know, this is a brilliant race for many reasons. Bacchus Crystal ran in the unraced in Cork not that long ago. She went in every notebook that you could imagine. She showed so much in the Dennis Linhan. Magical Mary, you know, when Bacchus Crystal was picked up twice in the 600, she was picked up by Bobsleigh Dream and by Crafty Kokoro.
Yeah.
And you know, and then you have Magical Mary almost picking her up. That's the quality of bitch it takes to get close to Bacchus Crystal, and particularly when she gets on the money. She's a fabulous bitch. Magical Mary showed unbelievable pace to get even close, because I think Story's Pee-wee turned second and kind of lost a little bit of ground into the first bend, was probably 5 or 6 down. Magical Mary was further behind, and got to within a short head. And in fairness to her, she did 27.80 one night in a trial in Curraheen on the first night at the Laurels. She did 27.80 doing phenomenal sections home. It's not a big surprise that she was staying as well as she was, but she hadn't run for a while, Magical Mary. Maybe she's entitled to step up on that, which is fairly ominous. I wonder would they be tempted to go to leisure with her.
Well, you see, this is the thing now with these bitches. There's a great selection of bitches around at the moment. Like, we'll touch on the Puppy Oaks in Shelbourne Park, but there is a valuable bitch, the Galway Oaks, shortly in Galway, and of course we have the Ledger. So look, there's plenty of options open for both of them. So it's exciting times, and it's going to be interesting to see where they both go. The 7th race on the card, Jimmy, the Bart Leahy Memorial A2 525 stake, named in honour of the great Bart Leahy. I actually got a winner in this week, Ballymac John Joe, and the only reason I backed him was the trial he had on his card. He had an 1861 trial in Shelbourne Park, which really stood out for me, but he got his trapping right on Saturday night, and he was an ultra impressive winner.
Yeah, people were telling me, but I wouldn't be great in the sprint times in Shelbourne, but the lads were telling me that was a fantastic run by him. So obviously he had shown some early pace in that trial, and people were saying it was a fabulous run, but he hadn't shown a trace of early pace in the heats leading up to the final of the Bart Leahy. And we all thought that Bartlemy Jazz was ideally drawn in trap 1, which he was. But Liam Dowling, certainly, this dog came out and it was an extraordinary one. He looks a huge prospect going forward now. 28-20 on the night. He won by 9 lengths. And I think Bart was a great character, Bart Lee. Bart would love to have walked a dog like him. As John Lennon said, Bart was only interested in walking the good ones, really. So I think there's a fitting tribute to Bart that a dog of that calibre won the final. But 9 lengths in 28-20, what a run. And as I said, a huge prospect going forward for the Dowlings, I think.
Yeah, it's just hard to find a good one to walk, believe me. This one, Ballymac John Joe, he's a half brother of Ballymac Art, Tommy. I think she's a 2-time Oaks finalist, but he looks to have a bright future.
Yeah, she had a bit more early pace than he does. Well, on previous evidence, she'd be a smarter trapper. I backed him the other night purely because of the price. Just taking a chance. I actually thought, to be honest about it, it would be quite straightforward. The back of me, Jazz would pop out and make all. But Ballymac John Joe hadn't, as Jimmy said, just hadn't been shown the early pace. It was hard to imagine that he was going to lead. And he's a middle seed, I think, not a wide seed. And I didn't think he was the most natural for trap 6, and I don't think he's not necessarily the most natural for trap 4. The only thing is, I came away after that race the other night thinking he might have matured quite a bit with that race. He looked like a different greyhound than he had looked in the previous rounds, and it bodes well for the future. I think he could be a dog that could develop nicely over the coming months. He's still very young, very, very young.
Yeah, he is very young and very well bred. It's a good start for his sire, Ballymac Anton. On to the consolation final here, Jimmy. CryptoPunk and Irish consolation derby winner. Looking back at the SP now, 11-4, it looks pretty generous considering, okay, he missed the start in the semi-final, but he'd been good in the derby and he'd been good in the first couple of rounds of the Laurels itself.
Absolutely, ran very well in the derby, as you said, won derby, the consolation derby, and ran very well through the Laurels. And again, he was so competitive, just didn't make the final. But he looked to have a reasonable draw on Saturday night. I didn't think he could probably lead Loch Gilroy, who has sensational early Norrie, but he's I think half missed and they seem to come together, but he showed fantastic pace to make the first bend, and he's a very, very good dog. Again, a worthy winner, and again, a dog that I'm sure that might head for the Ledger probably. It was a good run, and Graham Holland doesn't spare dogs. They thrive on running for him, and as I said, he's been at the highest level as well over the last 12 weeks, so he's not going backwards anyway. Certainly, I think he'd run well in the Ledger as well.
Yeah, definitely. I echo those sentiments. Tommy, just a quick word on one time only, last year's winner, Champion Stakes winner. I don't think he's had a rough time this year's Laurels, but I think the trap draws haven't helped him 4, 6, 3, and 5 for an inside seed. So luck wasn't really with him, but he ran well to get to the semi-finals, I suppose.
He did. I think he ran better than people think as well, because he had been competing and trying to get around the bend with some of the top dogs in the country. It was a deeper Laurels this year than last, and what I'm not trying to take away from his win last year. What I'm saying is, if he was in the same form as he was last year, he would have been right in there competing and probably in a final, because that's how good he was last year. But he's a year older. He doesn't seem to be quite at it. He's not a huge amount below his very best, not an awful lot below it, but he's just a little bit below it, and he couldn't afford to be this year. I think he ran with real credit. I have to say, I think he ran with real credit right throughout the Laurels. CryptoPunk, I couldn't back it the other night for one of the reasons was what Jimmy said. I thought Loch Gilroy might get out in front of him. CryptoPunk tends to turn right. Thought there might be a bit of a bumping match and whatever else. And you just don't want to be involved in. I don't want to be involved in that type of race. But he had disappointed me badly in the semi-finals of the Laurels, and disappointed me the previous week when he was runner-up, beaten 9.5 lengths. I think was it by Swords Rex? I thought so. I was kind of worried about it. Was he just the runs in the Derby and the early rounds of the Laurels, had he taken a toll? That's what I was concerned about. So I didn't go near him. If you had put that race on 4 weeks ago, I would have thought he was an absolute certainty, and he probably would have gone off odds on, to be honest about it. But I just had a few concerns about it. He was back to his best. 28-17 is a fabulous effort. So a good job by Graham Holland to freshen him up.
Yeah, Kasia Miska took a fall at the first bench, but she was up and got to the finish. Looked
Barry, as you said there, Barry, in fairness to one time only, he has carried the flag for last year's Laurels really and run very well. But unfortunately for me, he's never got trapped once since in the Laurels. And as you said, he's been damned with the draws in the Laurels, in fairness to dog. Yeah,
he has. And as Tommy mentioned, he's trying to get across the likes of the Serene Aces and
exactly.
These dogs with huge early pace. And look, it can break your heart as well. You know, you've been here. What's happened? I was here last year, and I was out and gone. And now it's not happening for me this year. The Droopy stood open 550 on the card. We've seen the English Greyhound Derby winner here, Jimmy, Romeo Magico. It was a big performance, 29-28. It wasn't so smartly away, but showed huge early pace. And once he led around the first bend, he was never going to be caught.
Yeah, it was fabulous for us in Cork to have the English Derby winner running. I mean, it's almost unheard of that he would be on the supporting card, but it was a great boost to have him there, and he showed great track craft. He didn't trap best, but there was a lot of trap 6 came up very, very fast. 2 Tommies, is it, or Tommy
Too Many, yeah, Tommy Too Many.
He showed great early, but Romeo Magico showed fantastic track craft at the first bend to cut inside and get across. And once he did that, there was no holding him. He's a fabulous winner of the English Derby. And as I said, we were thrilled to see him running in Cork on Saturday night. It was a great thrill for all the crowd to see him there, and great boost for the supporting card, as we were saying.
Yeah, the card just got better as the night went on. Tommy, he had a trial in Limerick. I presume he's going to go to the Ledger.
I would imagine the front two, at least the front two in that race, will go to the Ledger. Tommy Too Many as well. Tommy Too Many, I think he ran in the Kirby, did he? Ran very well in the Kirby.
He did, and I think he ran a couple of rounds in the Irish Derby, if I'm not mistaken. He went off big price.
He was in the Irish Derby. I think he went deep enough in the Kirby. We had been talking about him earlier in the year, and he was running well. Romeo Magico hadn't had much racing recently. Had trialled particularly well, and it was just a matter of whether he really needed the race experience again. He clearly didn't. It was a fabulous effort, and it sets him up. It's a ridiculous lot for 550. Yeah, we don't get too many of them around Curraheen doing 29, 28.
No, it's a big run. His trapping can be a little bit of an issue at times, but look, when he gets it right, he is without a doubt one of the best in the country. Jimmy, good to see Johnny Lennon have a win on the card. Drippy's Rocker later on, 27.93. That was a huge performance by him.
Yeah, Johnny's always taught an awful lot of this dog. I think he won the unraced in Cork, didn't he? Did he win the unraced that we were talking about earlier? Am I right?
Yeah, he did. He Buckers Christopher, yeah.
That Buckles ran in, exactly, yeah. So Johnny has always taught, and he ran one of Heated Derby as well, or ran Derby, and Johnny has pitched him in fairly highly. So he has always taught an awful lot of this dog. I know that. And I think on Saturday night, there was a brilliant run, because I thought Russmore Pat actually in Trap 1 was ideally drawn. He's a Curraheen Park specialist, and I didn't think anything could lead him out of Trap 1 on the night. And Johnny's dog did a fantastic run and stayed on very strong, and looks to me like he'll be a really exciting dog for Shelbourne Park next year. And he's a very young dog again, and will get stronger. And again on the night, 27.93. So
yeah, 27.93.
I think he's a huge prospect for next year, and I know that they'll be targeting all the big events hopefully with him next year.
Yeah, he could be a good prospect for next year, Tommy. He's not that heavily raced. I think that was only his 13 to 14 start there on Saturday night.
I'll have to echo what Jimmy said, because like he's pitched in here against really fast dogs. I know it didn't happen for Druby, is iconic, but extremely fast. Romeo Hanzo is a dog you would have seen in Shelbourne Park quite a bit. Russmore Pat had been one of the standard setters in the early rounds of the Laurels in terms of his early pace, and he's getting out in front and to be able to lead Russmore Pat and lead comfortably and go clear was a phenomenal effort. Yeah, he's a proper prospect for next year.
Yeah. And the final race on the card, Jimmy, Southern winner here, Millridge Bryce wins this for Donald O'Mahony. Good time, 29.83, a good winner of the last. Yeah,
Donny O'Mahony's a long time regular in Cork, always produces very, very good dogs, and you'd always respect everything that he has in it. It was a very competitive race, and it was great actually to see such a big crowd. Even normally when the Laurels final is over, people drift away, same as they do for all these big events, but it was a huge crowd, amazing. And again, I think it's testament the race wasn't too late, because it was 10:17, and I always think that these races, the night doesn't drag on too long then as well, and people who have a lot of families and young people, they're able to stay for that race as well and then get away home. So it was a huge crowd waiting for that, and it was great for Donny O'Mahony to have a winner on the night. Yeah, well, look, Jimmy, we couldn't have had the Laurels without you and your gang of friends that helped sort out the friends of Curraheen Park Racing. What's your overriding memory? What are you going to take away from this year's Laurels as a competition as a whole? A couple of things, Barry, if I can just mention one or two things. The calibre of entry was phenomenal. As you know, even going through the Derby every year, you don't always get the best dogs to the final, because there's always been the draw is so important in the semi-finals and things. But this year, I think it was definitely, without a doubt, and I'm going to the Laurels a long time, it was the best Laurels final I've ever seen in Cork, with the spread of dogs. And I think, as I said last week, every dog could have won on the night and had a great chance going into it, is what I'm saying. And the calibre of dog was phenomenal. And it's something that we were dreaming about when we took on this Laurels, that we would have a final of that calibre. It was absolutely sensational, and I'll be forever, excited by the thought of what we got to the final and the occasion it was, and the massive crowd that was there. And the night was phenomenal. Brian Collins, racing manager, Liam Wall, the catering manager, everything was sensational. People were thrilled with it. They had a great experience, and this is what it's all about: getting people to come back to Greyhound racing after being at the event. Yeah, look, well said. And Tommy, a big shout out to the friends and supporters of Greyhound Racing in Cork. It truly was a tremendous card there on Saturday night.
Big time. And this is what I was saying the other night when I was chatting to Rob Catterson. I was just saying that, like, we've had the right results over the last few years in the Laurels in the terms of those poignant results. You know, there were good, important local successes. But and you need to have them as part of the Laurels for, you know, it's extremely important that does happen. But here, this to me was the climax of what the friends and supporters of Cork Greyhound Racing have done, and what they deserved is to get a Laurels of this quality. This could have been a Derby final. This could have been any final anywhere. This was the best of Greyhound Racing. If you put it up in Shelbourne Park on Derby final night, you'd be saying it was as good as the Derby. That's how good it was. It was a phenomenal final and well deserved. And I tell you, the amount of work that they put in behind the scenes over the last number of years, and I'm sure if it comes to the point that they have to go again and do it again, people will only be willing to jump in again just as quickly as they did the last time. It was a phenomenal response to a call from people to show their support for Greyhound Racing, and that final and that whole stake, not just the final, was richly deserved for the people who put in that hard work behind the scenes.
Well said. I echo those sentiments. So well done to the friends and supporters of Cork Greyhound Racing. They delivered a fabulous competition and an excellent undercard there on Saturday night. Now we'll just touch on Shelbourne Park, lads. On Saturday night, they had two big finals up there. They had the final of the Paddy Merriman Memorial A1 and also the Racing Post Greyhound TV Puppy Oaks. Just previous to that, the fifth race on the card, Curraheen Sydney. Tommy, he was a great winner. Look, he's one of Ireland's best when he's on song. He was no match last week for I'll Not Be Back, but look, he got his night in the sun there on Saturday night, 28-18 we're making now.
Yeah, well, we can see it's no shame to be no match for I'll Not Be Back after what I'll Not Be Back did on Saturday night. Kilgrady Sydney popped out in front, and your commentary was pretty much what you said to us there now, in the sense that, you know, when he's on his day and when things going right for him, he is phenomenally fast. This was a fabulous run. He's power packed as well, isn't he? Like, you know, when he gets on the front end, you're just not going to pick him up.
Yeah, he's good. Jimmy's put 50p back in the meter there. Jimmy's back. Jimmy, we're just going through the card. The Paddy Merriman Memorial A1525. Look, we see another one of these Pistana unlocked. That's been a fabulous setup. But Undulation, there was plenty of trouble at the first bend. But speaking to Tommy earlier on, she was brave to go up the inside, and she ran out a deserving winner in the end.
She did indeed. And there's a couple of great runs on Saturday night in Shelbourne, actually. I mean, we were obviously focusing on Cork, but a couple of our favourites, Kilgrady Sydney, won around the Derby as well. Another night, remember, we backed them out of trap one, I think, didn't they? Ran very well. And Auxerre, another favourite of mine, I've backed a few times. She ran a cracker again on Saturday night. And the Ballymac bitch, I thought, Barry, in the final, Liam Dowling obviously is well spread out all over the country. She had a blinding run again, I think. What was the time? 28?
28-17, yeah.
17, yeah. 28-17, brilliant one again. And, you know, I mean, we were obviously concentrating on Cork, but there was some brilliant races in Shelbourne as well.
Yeah, the dogs seem to run better in Shelbourne Park when Alan Bond is paraded instead of Shane Dowling. So, but that's just my own thought. Yeah, Tommy, it was a great final. The Puppy Oaks again. We had 3 from the Pistana unlock litter. Amazing, that first litter. It was full of all bitches in that litter. But Ballymac run. I mentioned in commentary when I seen 3 cannons coming out that way, I thought she was going to be a big player. But then the eye was quickly drawn to one on the inside, and once she led, really, she was never going to be caught.
I think that was that her best split. Was it 206? I think it was. Yeah. It was. This was over early. She was only backing up. In fairness to her, backing up what she had done previously. She was impressive. She was impressive the previous round. She did 28-11. This is obviously a deeper race. You had 3 cannons who was a finalist in the Juvenile Derby.
Yes, 3rd place. Yeah.
3rd in the Juvenile Derby. And 3 cannons came out, as you said. I thought this might be a race, but Ballymac run is so strong. And Liam Dowling he has such depth. There are always 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 there that are capable of doing 28-10 or doing 29-30 or for 5:50. Like he just has such quality. And the Ballymac run is really exciting. Now she has a nice bit of experience.
Yeah, she does now for her age. Yeah, she does.
Yeah, for her age, she has a nice bit of experience. But that's not to say she won't go on improving. And if she can continue to break like that, she'll be a player in the Oaks and next year as well. She's that type of quality. And she'll stay.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, and Jimmy, you just touched them. I think we just deserve to give him another mention. Auxerre, that was his 24th race he won there on Saturday night for Oliver Shields. And most of those races have come in top company, and most of them at Shelbourne Park on a Saturday night. Yeah,
another one of Droopy Sydney's offspring. They're phenomenal dogs, really, and racing doesn't seem to worry them. They do things right, and he's been knocking at the door on the top of the fence as well over the last 2 years. And another great one on Saturday night.
Yeah, well done. It was a terrific card there at Shelbourne Park on Saturday night, as you would expect. Last night down in Clonmel, we had the two semi-finals of the Munster Juvenile Cup. The first semi-final was won by Lily White Queen, another one for Droopy Sydney, as Jimmy just mentioned. And then the second semi-final was won by Riverside Fudge for Graham Holland and the RTC Syndicate. He won that in 28-36. So that final is on there next Sunday night, I think it is. There's plenty of finals on that card next Sunday evening as well. Tommy, I don't know if you got a chance to look at the action last night from Clonmel, but again, another terrific card and plenty of finals to look forward to there next week.
Didn't see it now, but they're big times again. But you'd expect it. They're going to have a huge card as well, as you said, because they had a lot of semi-finals on last night. It's going to be a big card next weekend.
Yeah, it certainly is. And just to wrap up, lads, just touching on some big runs around the country at the weekend. Roxholm Duke was a good winner in Dundalk on Saturday night for Martin Lenny, 28-65. In Waterford on Friday night, with the first round of the Friends of Kilcone Park and Waterford Track Supporters, A4525, where Daring Bonnie was the fastest first round winner there for trainer Michael Mead in 28-92. So well done to him. The Frightful Flash Sires A4550 semi-final. Paul McKennan's dog won that Run Faster. I don't know why we haven't thought of a name like that for a greyhound before. It's pretty simple when you say it like that, isn't it? Run Faster. And in Shelbourne Park on Saturday night, Pat Kilfoyle had a good winner of a dual distance in a dog called Skagly Effie. He won the first semi-final, but Kilcolgan Chief took off in the second semi-final as well. So that's it, lads. Listen, thanks very much for your time. Jimmy, once again, not only for your time this morning, but thanks for all your work you've put in for the friends and supporters of the Cork Greyhound racing. It's much appreciated. And we'll look forward to it again next year. I'm sure you're looking forward to it again.
Indeed, Barry, and again, thanks for everything, this exposure we got from Talking Dogs and all the Greyhound board people. You know, as I said, I'm repeating myself now, but the final we had on Saturday night, the crowd we had, it was incredible, and it made all the work we've put in justified. And it was the people who got behind us that made us the Laurels it is, and it was all worthwhile on Saturday night.
Yeah, well, sometimes dubbed the Derby of the South. It certainly was the Derby of the South. It might even have been the Derby of the whole land this year. That's how good the final was. Listen, lads, thanks for your time. Tommy, thanks very much for your time. Thank you for joining us as well. And we'll see you all again here when Ian Fortune's back next Monday evening.